Hey, everybody, in this episode, it's myself, Benjamin B., and Dr. T. Look, in our Facebook group, the Sobriety Network, which we highly encourage you to join, there was a couple of questions that people wanted discussed on the podcast, one of which is, what do you do for your young adult child that just entered into the rehab process? If you're a parent and your child just entered into the rehab process, what should you do? What shouldn't you do? How should you communicate with them? How should you support them? And we get into detail on what that should look like, and it sparks a lot of good conversation. Throughout this conversation, we do talk about the recent program that we released, and obviously in the episode, you can hear more about that, and we cover so much more. I know you're going to love it. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we've got Dr. T.
Hello, everyone.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com, and ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, peeps?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Ben, did you do a little too much cocaine last night, huh?
Well, I got the sniffles.
Yeah.
I think there's like permanent damage up there from the amount of stuff. Like,
Jeez.
I feel like, is there like a doctor that'll just like stick something way up there and just pull stuff out?
No.
So, like, not a lobotomy, though.
No.
Maybe you have a deviated septum.
No, it's just, dude, it feels like there's just permanently like chunks up in there.
You got like
frontal cortex
crystallized
in my brain.
Yeah.
Crystallized booger sugar up
I mean,
there.
where does it go?
It's gone. Your body gets rid of it.
Obviously not. I don't know where you got your medical degree. Anyways, here we are. We're back. And what day is today? Today's Tuesday. It's a beautiful day. It's starting to get hot here in sunny South Florida. Actually, this morning was rather chilly.
It was cold.
Yeah. What's new in y'all's life? Anything?
No.
Ben's going to be getting a new Mustang.
I heard.
Yeah. See, put it out
Peer
there.
pressure is getting to me.
Yeah.
Really, it is.
Like irritating or
no,
like...
I want to go get it.
All right. So there's this 2025 Mustang Dark Horse right across the street, and it's brand new. How many miles it got on it? 8?
Yeah, like 10 miles.
Yeah. And it's got a 5.0 liter, 500 horsepower. I mean, that thing's a beast, Ben.
I know. I thought my Mustang days were over.
Did you test drive it?
No, it's on
the showroom floor.
You need to go
it's
test
like real
drive
nice.
I don't know if they would. I mean, yeah,
it. Yeah, they would.
Yeah, of course they would.
Yeah.
Say, move these cars out of my way.
The hell you doing over here, T?
Oh, sorry.
Busting up the joint.
This is Tom yelling at everyone all the time.
There we go. So anyways, yeah, Ben's going to go pick that up, hopefully over the next day or two, and we'll keep you posted. But until then, we're going into the Sobriety Network. And if you don't know about the Sobriety Network, it's our free Facebook group that we would love to invite you to. It's on Facebook. Type in the Sobriety Network, answer a couple of questions. We'll let you in. We're creeping up on 800 people in there. And we post in there every now and again to give us some topics for discussion. And we got 15 to 20, and we honed in on a couple. And the first one that we decided to do was from Linda. What to do or not to do as parents of young adults who recently started rehab. So it's very, broad, but narrow at the same time, if that makes sense. So I'm assuming Linda has a young adult who recently entered into the rehab process. Fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that parents can or should do or should not do while their young adult child is in rehab? Ben, why don't you kick us off?
I'm going to start off with what you always say, Tom. No, actually, I'm going to start off with what I always say. I'll leave what you always say to you.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I would definitely say, what do I say? Now I'm drawing a blank.
You say, let me just shoot it to you straight.
Yeah, let me shoot it to you straight. Don't do for them what they can do for themselves.
Okay.
Even though they've entered treatment and made that good decision to do so, doesn't mean all of a sudden, okay, turn on the enabling again.
Mm-hmm.
If you even stopped enabling to begin with. It's a lot of parents will feel the relief and like, okay, they made the commitment, they're doing the right thing, but you don't want to steal their opportunity to rise to the occasion is what it comes to. You don't want to, again, in its simplest form, for instance, I like using, a car, for example. When they sit there and they tell you, like, let's say they get through the PHP level of care, they're moving on to intensive outpatient, and they call you and tell you, I can't do anything without a car. Nonsense. Like, give them the opportunity to try. And then when you see them trying, when you see some effort, when you see the fruits of their labor, then maybe reevaluate that, but not until you see some effort on their part, so to speak. And because they'll come to realize, the client themselves, that they can actually do this stuff. I watch clients do something like that all the time. They don't have a car. We have the clients here that have one sitting at home because their parents have it parked and it's in their name and they pay the insurance and all that. And then you got the clients who have zero resources, who are able to go out, get a job. They pound the pavement in their Jerusalem cruisers, right? And next thing you know, you got the guy that refuses to do anything until mom and dad send the car down. Like, it's entitlement. And when that guy who says he couldn't do it all of a sudden starts showing up to interviews and gets that job, he's able to say to himself, wow, I thought I couldn't do this without a car. You prove to yourself what you're capable of.
What did you say? Jerusalem cruisers?
Yeah.
Sandals?
Your sandals.
Wow. Never heard that one before.
No.
Yeah. No, that's good though. I mean, don't do for them what they can do for themselves. And I think that's because honestly, a big part of somebody's addiction, especially young adults, men or women, they're used to being enabled. Chances are, if you're a parent and your child is in rehab, you've played some role. You've enabled them to some degree. So why would you continue doing the same thing? Well, a lot of times parents get into their head, well, look at how good they're doing. So, and then us as addicts, we're very manipulative and can say and make you believe anything for the most part. I mean, we're pretty much masters of it. So it's really utilizing their parents' niceness against them and utilizing it as their weakness. And hey, I need that car. T, what do you got from a medical perspective, if anything?
Well, before I put my 2 cents, but that also ties into setting healthy boundaries with their children, right? Stop the enabling, but setting healthy boundaries. Like if I'm paying your car payment and I'm paying the insurance, but you're not doing anything to help yourself, you're not, we speak with your therapist once a week. We get an update. We kind of know what's going well and what's not. I'm really not going to be willing to meet you anywhere until we start seeing you doing the work yourself and having these achievable goals. From a medical standpoint, I would say, what are you laughing at?
Well, no, I was already thinking of this for your role.
I have one in my head too, but let's see if T gets it.
Oh gosh. It's probably not going to be what you guys are thinking.
Well, okay, go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
I have 2 things.
Okay.
One is being a helicopter parent, especially in relation to, so you just get some parents who really don't understand addiction, one, and treatment. And they think that it's the medical provider's duty to fix their child. Give them the proper medications, or don't give them medications at all, because medications, they don't like medications. So it's either like one end or the other of the spectrum. And basically placing the blame on me if their child is not making progress and whatnot through the program, which leads me to believe they obviously do not understand, one, addiction, but two, treatment.
Yeah.
And the other one is having realistic expectations. Like you said, some people are like, oh, my loved one's in treatment and it's just going to get better from here. Everything's going to be fixed. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we know the statistics and we know the reality of the situation. And I'm not telling people to have a negative view or negative outlook on what the future looks like, but understand that relapse is a possibility down the line, and that you have to understand that it's nothing you did as an individual or as a parent or as a loved one, but that it is a very valid thing to talk about, because if it does happen on the back end, they are not so shocked or so surprised or let down or hurt. Name the emotion when it comes to it.
Yeah, to piggyback off what you said on on both, starting with the helicopter parents. I mean, how many times from Ben and I's perspective and from the medical side do we get calls from parents or emails, or somehow they infiltrate communication, even if we tell them don't communicate with us? And we always say it in a loving way, of course, but they figure it out. And I'm thinking of one person in particular that sent a whole dissertation about what her son should be on and why he should be on it, and why can't anybody ever seem to figure this out, and like she was being kind of nasty. And it's like, well, if you have all the answers, then why is he here? And parents have such a hard time separating themselves because, rightfully so, we've raised our children, right? And even with the experience that I have going on right now with Hattie, and this is on a much smaller scale, but navigating the diabetes and stuff, I've caught myself thinking, what the hell do these people know? I feel like I can do a better job managing her insulin than the doctors can.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it's like, okay, dummy. Like, no, I can't. And this is, we're trying to figure this out together. And parents have a really hard time doing that. What was the second thing that you said that I had to piggyback off of? Oh, unrealistic expectations. We live in a society where we think that a pill is a cure for just about everything, that there's a cure or a pill that you can take that will cure anything. And when we're dealing with addiction, in particular, I mean, I haven't met a drug addict or an alcoholic that's not dual diagnosed to some degree, whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, some sort of personality disorder, bipolar, you name it. There's something there. It's never just alcohol or never just drugs. Oftentimes, parents, like what you said, it's one end or the other, but they have this expectation that, well, if you just get them on the right medication, everything is going to be okay. Get them on the right antidepressant and everything is going to be okay. And it's like, I'm a firm believer that I could, and maybe speak into this, if you are a lazy, for lack of a better way to put it, POS, right? You don't leave the house. You don't talk to people. You don't go, you don't exercise. Your diet consists of nothing but trash. You're inactive, all those things, but you're on the right antidepressant. What's that going to change? I mean, there's multiple factors that play into this. So having the realistic expectations that, like, yes, we can, hone in on the proper medication, but that's not the cure-all.
It's like, yeah, we had all the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay on Prozac. I don't understand why they weren't happy.
Is that a real thing?
No.
Oh.
Good
Here
example,
comes Ben
though.
all day.
Yeah. I mean, and we see that a lot.
We
even
do.
from clients.
And therapists, not here, but, I work in this field and I will get all the time, the clients will manipulate their therapist, and then I have the therapist running to me like, Sally really needs to be put on an antidepressant. oh, really? Because I read the shift report and Sally's been staying up all night playing Fortnite and drinking caffeine and not exercising and, eating popcorn and taking her Seroquel before bed and fighting that Seroquel sleep.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Yeah.
So let's have a conversation about that. Like, why do we think that Sally needs an antidepressant? Why don't we talk about her daily life and behavioral habits and addressing those and changing those before we just start throwing more medication at her?
Yeah.
And this is why Dr. T is the bee's knees. I wanted to throw this out there that, like, for instance, you see our clients, and all the time, you send an email summarizing what happened with every client that you saw, and there's maybe like a sentence about what you're prescribing them, whether you're raising or lowering the dose, and then like the 80% of it is what you're seeing and interacting, their behavior, their feedback. Like, so even the way that you report it is so little of this is what they're going to be taking. That, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's observing all that. And I bring that up too, because the other thing that parents have to realize, the client still has to be accountable for their action, kind of like what you're getting at. We have a case right now that literally over the weekend, thank God we've got great tech staff and frontline staff that oversees everything and picks up on this stuff. Hey, so-and-so client decided to stop taking their medication. Literally on Friday, everyone's walking around telling everybody how great this guy's doing, probably because he's on his medication. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I feel great. I'm going to stop taking it. We got the opportunity to intervene.
Mm.
But the thing is like on a parent's end, they might not know all this stuff. All of a sudden, a week later, their kid's falling apart, but they stop taking their medication as prescribed. So you got to keep in mind too, like to your point also with the client expectations, what we don't want also is like, because in our program, the clients have their phones. The clients call mom and dad and say, oh, this isn't working well. This medication isn't working the way I want it to be. You've been taking it for 2 days, dude. Like, you got to give it, I don't know how long, 3 weeks?
4 weeks.
3-4 weeks. And with some of them, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some mild side effects sometimes, but those also dissipate in 3 to 4 weeks. Like, what are some examples of some mild?
What, like sleep meds or
like
Seroquel, Trazodone?
Like Vraylar, doesn't it make you restless?
Vraylar can, Abilify can. Yeah,
but
the mood stabilizers will, if you stop it or decrease the dose, they'll subside in a few days.
Yeah. So,
explosive diarrhea. That seems to come as a side effect with every medication.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
It's probably that 4 sleeves of Oreos you eat that you talk about every day on the podcast, Tom.
No, but that's a good point. I mean, people don't give this stuff a chance, parents included. And what's that phrase? Like a backseat driver type person, always want to control things from like 1,500 miles away,
Or the Monday morning quarterback.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but they also don't keep into account they're trying to control the situation still. They're trying to control their child still. Not understanding that, one, they can't want it more than their child or loved one or whoever that might be. But two, that this relationship dynamic is probably what has kept them individually sick, but has also kept their child or loved one sick. And that whole dynamic has to, like, once they separate and get into treatment or move out, whatever that looks like, that has to stop for them to be better as a person, as a caregiver, as a loved one, but for the person who's getting help themselves also to grow and be better, because that whole dynamic obviously wasn't working. And to the opposite side of that, we also get parents or loved ones who are non-existent and don't want to have anything to do with what's going on. That can be detrimental to that person too, but that person who's in treatment has to live with those consequences and has to be able for themselves to find what their new trajectory and path is. And that has nothing to do with the caregiver or loved one at that point. But to give them advice about what to do. Help yourself, learn, educate yourself about what addiction is, how it's a disease, what does the process look like, and about treatment, what are the good things, what are the bad things, and be available to your loved one. Don't hover, don't want it more than them, don't try to control them, just be in a listening ear, an open ear, and when prompted, put your input in. But try not to be judgmental, shaming, all of the negative descriptors that you can think of.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say, and Ben, you allowed me to say this in the beginning. Stay as uninvolved until we tell you, until we invite you into the process. So T, going back to what you said, we do run into parents that want absolutely nothing to do with the situation. And honestly, all things created equal, I would prefer that. I would prefer a parent just say, you know what? I don't want anything to do with this. Outside of blatant emergencies, don't contact me. I would prefer that over somebody that needs to be part of the process the whole entire time. So anytime I'm talking to parents, and I know, Ben, you do the same, and Destiny as well, anytime we're talking to parents or loved ones that, they're entrusting us to work with their loved one, I tell them all the time that you stay as uninvolved as humanly possible until invited in. Now, and I tell them, unless it's an absolute emergency. Now, what constitutes an emergency? Not, hey, I don't need to be here. You should see how clean this place is. This place is an absolute pigsty. My roommate, he's eaten all of my food out of the refrigerator. My therapist, she said something to me that was, oh, you should have heard it. Stuff like that. All the
manipulative
Yeah.
things that they try to do to trick you into taking them out of the treatment center that they're in.
Right. And I actually will prep parents on, these things are going to happen. So be prepared for this. That way, when it does happen, you know what to do. Now, it may not be verbatim like Johnny ate my Cheerios, but you should be able to decipher what's an emergency and what's manipulation. And at some point throughout the process, you will be invited in. When that time is appropriate. When that is, we don't know. Because a lot of things become unraveled throughout the treatment process, and we may find, hey, it makes sense for you to get involved a week or two after they're here. It may make sense for you to get involved 2 months after they're here. But that has to be led by us, the clinical team, the therapists, medical staff, all of us, a combined effort. Because in the end, what are you doing? You're entrusting us to get your loved one sober, or at least make our best efforts in doing so.
I mean, also, too, the expectation to get answers right up front. A lot of times I'll get those calls. They're like, how's my loved one doing? And I'm like, dude, they've been here for 3 days. I don't know. They're getting acclimated. They seem nice. But, the reality of the situation is we're not even going to know as a clinical team for a good 3 weeks. There's probably no phone call worth having outside of an emergency within the first 3 weeks. Just a general, hey, they're safe, they're good, they like their therapist, seems like they're making an effort.
Yeah.
It's not until, ideally this process is a 90 to 120 day process, but a lot of times loved ones are right up there, in the beginning, expecting some sort of miracle, but it takes time.
Right. Now, we've been painting a picture of the more negative client, right? Or the more negative parent. Let's say, for instance, your loved one's in treatment and they're actually doing well. They're thriving. They're an asset to the community. They're working well with their therapist. They're taking medications appropriately. They're talking to Tambini. They're open. They're honest. And they just want to call you and say, hey, just checking in. I'm totally cool with that. Like, there has
Yep.
to be a level of discernment here from the loved one, you know, and understanding, like, and you'll know, or at least you should. And if you don't, then probably err on the side of the caution and keep communication to a minimum. But that is ultimately what we would like to see, a healthy amount of communication between both parties. Not and because we've seen clients that are just like, my mom will not leave me alone. In fact, pull the release because it's crazy, you know. And then so what does that mean, pulling a release? Well, a client has every right in the world, because they're over the age of 18, to dictate who we can and cannot talk to. And if, mom, you're calling, you know, every other hour of the day trying to get information on your son or daughter, they can pull the release. And then at that point in time, we're strapped. We can't say nothing to anybody ever about the process.
One of the other things, too, that happens unintentionally is that a lot of times if the parent is communicating every single day with their loved one here, what ends up happening is a division where the client is telling us one thing, and then behind the scenes, it's just old habits. They don't even know they're manipulating mom. They just talk about all the negative, the poor me, the self-pity. And then what we end up with is mom's getting one story, we're getting another. If you're not even there, mom, calling every day, like, yeah, check in with your kid. But make it a short, sweet phone call. How you doing? Love you. Bye. Keep it to that. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to give that client the opportunity to indulge in old behavior with you, because we're trying to change those behaviors.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because we get that like sweet parents, loving, supportive, just super nice people. And they don't know what they're walking into. They're aware of the manipulative behaviors, but maybe they haven't educated themselves enough. And their child will just, that manipulative behavior doesn't go away overnight. And it ensues in the facility. Like, we have had a client that was trying to manipulate their therapist and then manipulate another staff member and manipulate the parent. And then when all of the staff finally got on the same page and found out with the parent what was going on, we had to confront the client and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is your behavior. Your manipulation hasn't stopped. It's just continuing and it's getting worse. So, like, we really need to fix the situation.
Yeah.
You know what, too? I think this just kind of hit me. I'm wondering what y'all's thoughts on this is. For our clients that have been to treatment multiple times, a lot of the times those parents seem to be more the violators, if you will. Like, for instance, we just got a client here first time in treatment, and what I love about it is mom actually knows nothing, but she knows that she knows nothing, admits that, and before reaching out to her son, actually texted you and I, Tom, in a group text like, hey, what should I be doing as far as communication? Should I call him and say hi? Should I just text him I love you? Should I be talking to him for a half hour every day?
Yeah.
What do I do? You know, and that's cool. I don't mind that because you could coach that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually the parents whose kids have been to multiple centers. Sometimes they tend to be the worst when they should know the best.
Yeah. They should be fed up with the whole process, and but for whatever. And I think that just speaks to how, I mean, I hate to put it this way, how sick they are.
I don't hate to put it that way. It's the truth.
Yeah. Well, let's segue into something. The absolute best thing that you can do is to educate yourself, Tambini. You kind of alluded to this. Educate yourself before even putting your loved one into treatment. Because the more that you're educated on this whole process, the better off the experience is going to be, not only for your loved one, but for yourself. And we put together a program that you can go and get. Go to realrecoverytalk.com/treatment prep. And basically, it's 5 modules. There's a video tied to it. There's downloadable PDFs. It's going to spark questions. You're going to read this stuff. You're going to watch the videos. And you're going to think about, what's the process in going about this? And we're going to instruct you the whole entire way through on what to do to ensure that your loved one is going into a proper treatment center. And I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be good. And it's not like, it's not super long. I think to get through the whole entire thing would probably take you maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can go to ruralrecoverytalk.com/treatment prep for that. And, it's because that's one of the things that people, parents oftentimes, they just act out of emotion, which is understandable. Get on Google, start Googling, I need this, this, and this. And then treatment centers start popping up and we just start calling treatment centers. And treatment centers are very savvy. They can tell you exactly what you want to hear, when you need to hear it. And, they can tug on your heartstrings. And next thing you know, your loved one's on a flight to who knows where for treatment, and you don't know anything really about them. So, that's part of why we put that together. So, realrecoverytalk.com/treatment prep. Yeah. What else, guys? Anything else?
There was another one, right?
Yeah. You want to do another one?
Do you?
Oh, mine refreshed.
Well, this has been 30 minutes. Let's save that one for another
All
episode.
right.
But there was another question that was.
Okay. All right, Tambini. Jeez. Gosh.
I just want.
In a mood today, are we? Huh? Gosh. That's Tambini angry.
She'll wreck you, dude.
What? Oh, I guess we kind of answered it. What can loved ones do to check in on those who are in recovery? I meant, yeah, how would you answer that question? Maybe someone's completed treatment, they're in sober living, or maybe they're on their own now, or maybe they're back home with their family. As a loved one or parent, how would you guide them to check in?
Well, the first thing I would ask is what does your history look like in terms of communication? If it's overbearing and you can't, well, two things. One, what have you done historically to check in? And two, what's your motives? How much is it serving you versus serving them? Because a lot of times I think what parents and loved ones do, it's not about their loved one. It's about them and their control issues. So what would consider to be a check-in is, I just want to know if you're fucking up. And if you are, then you know what I'm saying? Like that, it kind of reinforces that stuff. But let's just assume that you're not, you're actually healthy and you just genuinely want to know, then call them, send them a text message. But only what has kind of been excessive, right? And if they're completed through the treatment process and you've had any form of education, therapy yourself as a loved one, then you should know what the right thing to do is. And if you don't, then you could join our Family Reconnect program that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of months. It did release a while ago, but then we pulled it back because we just weren't ready for it, but now we're ready for it. And that's going to be a place where we can educate you. Do you see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
Two slingers. Knock it out of the
Usually
park.
that's Ben.
Yeah. Ben, I don't know what you got on that.
No, the thing that was going through my head was gauging the purpose of the phone calls too. And this can go either direction. Whether despite who initiates the conversation, I'd be looking at the fact, like, if, say for instance, I have a loved one that's made it to sober living, they're done with treatment. Are they calling? Am I calling them? And is the phone call resulting in them asking for things? Or is it genuinely like, hey, I'm just calling Dad to see how he is and say hi, tell you I love you? Or is there a pattern of, every once in a while, of course, like something's going to get, hey, can you help me out with this? I got a job interview. I need some nice new kicks for it or whatever. But really judging the basis of the phone call and the pattern, like, is this out of, I need something, I want something from you? Because that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with, like, allowing them to do for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
given that, and it's a form of empowerment too. Most young adult young adults don't necessarily care to hear from their parents all that often.
Yeah,
anymore.
I was going to throw that out there. Like, I'm good talking to my mom and dad like once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I only talk to my dad more than that because now, I kind of have to, but I think that was all good stuff. Good discussion. I don't think we've really talked about that much. So
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. Just throwing that out there. I still love you.
do they listen?
I think my dad does sometimes. You know what's funny is a lot of his friends, my parents' friends, listen. They were just telling me my dad, he still does runs and stuff like that. Ran into it like 5Ks and marathons.
Of course he does.
Yeah, he's mad old and still does marathons. But
how old is your dad?
Like 70 something.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, he's gonna live to be like 150. It's ridiculous.
Oh, he'll still collect Social Security.
But what I was getting at though is like he runs into old friends like that knew me when I was getting in trouble, and a lot of those people watch. And one of our good friends growing up from when I was like 10 years old all the way through high school. Like I haven't seen them as a family in forever, but my dad was relaying the message to them like, oh, we see what Ben's doing with the podcast and stuff. And it's just cool to hear that feedback. Like people I haven't talked to in 20 years that remember how messed up I was.
Yeah.
And then see this. It's cool.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean,
why'd we bring that up?
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Everyone's tired today.
Yeah.
Let me do a shout out real quick. Chris is somebody that I've had the opportunity to work with now for the past, call it month and a half, 2 months. Chris, you're doing phenomenal, man. Keep it up. Chris is great. I meet with him on a weekly basis and, pretty good stuff, but I wanted to give him a shout out because he's somewhat going through it every now and again, so keep it up, Chris. You're doing great. Anything else?
You know what's cool about that? Can I chime in?
Go ahead.
This is a case where you legitimately, because this was kind of one of the questions or comments, but that we didn't dive into, but you got someone that legitimately can't go to treatment, but is still making the effort to do everything that they can do to get the help that they can.
Right.
That fits whatever it is that they have with the specifics going on in their lifestyle, dude. And that's cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that he sought us out and he's one of those guys. He's like, he just couldn't, he can't. And so we worked something out and we've done this in the past, working with people individually because look, in the end, we are the treatment center, so if for whatever reason you can't actually go to treatment, well, maybe you want to work with us on an individual level. And that's really what was appealing to him because like we know obviously the ins and outs of treatment because we have a brick and mortar treatment, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to treatment. You don't have to. And this is proof, he's doing very well. And, and what's cool is we've instilled a lot of things, in his process that like, he was nervous or apprehensive about, and we talk very little about drugs and alcohol, very little. 90% of our conversation does not consist of drugs and alcohol. And that's the thing that people need to realize is that this whole sober thing has very little to do with that. It has everything to do with everything else. So anyways, keep it up, Chris. All right. Any final thoughts? We good?
We're good.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.